All right, let's call the meeting to order at 6:02, beginning with the roll call.
Commissioner DeCosta,
Present.
Commissioner Flores,
Here.
Commissioner Pereira,
Present.
Commissioner Siebert,
Here.
Vice Chair Khan.
Present. All right, if you could all join me and rise for the national anthem. The Pledge of Allegiance. Chris can sing the national anthem. All right, hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Rolling along to item 3.1 and ending my term in this seat. Public Safety Commission reorganization.
Good evening, Commissioners. Every year, the Public Safety Commission appoints a chair and a vice chair. These appointments are effective immediately once the motions are approved. The newly appointed chair and vice chair will preside in the calendar year 2017.
All right.
I'd make a motion to nominate Commissioner DeCosta as the chair.
I'll second that motion.
Commissioner DeCosta,
I accept that nomination and aye.
Commissioner Flores,
Aye.
Commissioner Pereira,
Aye.
Commissioner Siebert,
Aye.
Vice Chair Khan.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
So we can choose now.
I think you can just stay right there.
Okay. Oh wait, she's got it ready. Okay. That's a vice chair.
That's right.
Oh, it's falling. It's falling.
It's coming.
This is some
We'll just hold on to this
bureaucratic
for a
stuff.
Good job. So do I now ask for any nominations by any commissioners at this time, or am I to make a motion for a nominee?
You would ask for a nomination for the vice chair
Do we
position?
have a nomination by anyone for a vice chairperson?
I'd like to make a nomination for Sean Prill to be the vice chair.
I'll second.
Commissioner Flores,
Aye.
Commissioner Pereira,
Aye.
Commissioner Siebert,
Aye.
Chair DeCosta.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Aye.
Commissioner Khan,
She's already gotten rid of me. Aye.
I apologize. Motion passes 5-0.
Why is it without you? Thank you. Moving on to presentations, monthly police department update. 3.2. Is it 3.2? Is that not?
Good evening, Commissioner, City Staff, and Public.
Sorry, excuse me, sir, 1 second. Was there another
3.2.
3.2?
No, sir, no, Chairperson DeCosta, there is not a 3.2, well, yes, there is a 3.2 that we'd like you to cover, but under Section 4 for presentations, we do want to add a 4.3,
Okay.
which would be the presentation of Hope Siebert, Commissioner.
All right, we'll add it to 4.3. Thank you. Sir, my apologies.
I'm up? Okay.
You are.
Good evening, Commissioner, City Staff, and Public.
No, there is a 3.2, sir, which is
Forgive me
the
then.
subcommittee member selection for the I-15 Subcommittee.
Every year, the Public Safety Commission appoints two commissioner members to serve on the I-15 Interchange Design Subcommittee, as well as the Eastville Schools Committee. Due to the departure of former Commissioner Hook, there will be changes to the subcommittee list. Currently, the Eastville Schools Committee meets on a quarterly basis on the third Thursday of the month at 1 p.m. at the Eastville Community Center, and the I-15 Interchange Design Subcommittee meets on an as-needed basis at Eastville City Hall. Staff is recommending to appoint a member of the Public Safety Commission to the I-15 Interchange Design Subcommittee to fill the vacancy left by former Commissioner Hook, and to reappoint or reaffirm the existing appointments to the Eastville Schools Committee.
So at this time, do we have any commissioners that would like to be a part of the Interchange Design Subcommittee for the I-15?
I would volunteer for that.
Thank you, David. Call for a vote on that, or?
Commissioner Flores,
Aye.
Commissioner Pereira, Vice Chair Pereira,
Aye.
Commissioner Sieber,
Aye.
Commissioner Khan,
Aye.
Chair DeCosta.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
And do we have a commissioner willing to be a part of the Schools Committee?
I would like to volunteer for that.
Okay, Hope.
Commissioner Flores,
Aye.
Commissioner Khan,
Aye.
Commissioner Sieber,
Aye.
Vice Chair Pereira,
Aye.
Chair DeCosta.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Without further ado, sir, I do apologize.
All right, here we go. Good evening, Commissioners, City Staff, and Public. I do hope everyone had a nice holiday season. The stats I'm going to give you tonight cover from our last meeting on September 27th to yesterday, January 23rd, which is approximately a 4-month time frame. During this time, there were 10,576 calls for service. 192 were traffic collisions. 29 were minor injury or complaints of pain. 1,503 citations written. 1,773 parking citations. 91 vehicle burglaries. 14 occurred in the parking areas surrounding Hamner and Limonite. 294 noise calls and 101 mail thefts. In response to continuing incidents of mail theft and thefts from vehicles, the SET team adjusted their hours to work late in the evening. In addition, quality of life overtime was used to extend their shifts into the early morning hours. Between Christmas and New Year's Eve, dozens of subjects on foot and in vehicles were contacted. On October 27, 2016, the Eastville and Norco SET deputies, along with the U.S. Postal inspectors, served a search warrant in the city of Norco related to an ongoing mail theft investigation. 4 suspects were identified and arrested. Tools used for committing mailbox and identity thefts were recovered. The suspects are believed to be responsible for hundreds of thefts in Eastville and the surrounding areas. From Thanksgiving through Christmas, deputies were deployed using holiday shopping overtime to the shopping areas surrounding Limonite and Hamner during peak shopping hours. There were no significant incidents to report during the hours deputies were present. On October 28, 2016, an Eastville police officer was conducting patrol in the Gateway Shopping Center parking lot when he contacted an occupant of a parked vehicle. The deputy located a controlled substance package for sales and a loaded handgun inside the vehicle. The suspect was arrested and booked for possession of drugs for sale and being a felon in possession of a handgun. On November 15, 2016, a man driving a gray Nissan Altima wearing an orange construction vest exposed himself to a woman in front of the Ulta store in the Gateway Shopping Center. An Eastville patrol deputy was able to later identify the suspect and obtain sufficient evidence to file charges against him out of custody. His name is being withheld at this time because a warrant was issued for his arrest. On November 28, 2016, a 1999 Honda Civic was stolen from the 5400 block of Highbury Way in Eastville. About 5 hours after the theft was reported, Hooper Valley Special Enforcement Team deputies located the vehicle parked near a vacant lot at 37th and Wallace in the city of Hooper Valley. A 22-year-old resident of Hooper Valley was arrested and booked for the vehicle theft, possession of burglary tools, possession of a controlled substance, and a probation violation, and a press release was written. On December 7, 2016, Hooper Valley police officers received information that residents in the 4000 block of Bain Street in Hooper Valley were responsible for vehicle thefts and other thefts-related crimes. During a surveillance of the residence, a vehicle that had been stolen from Eastville on December 2, 2016, was seen in the back of the property. Deputies contacted the occupants of the stolen truck and arrested a 31-year-old resident of Hooper Valley. A wallet that was stolen from an unlocked car in Eastville on December 6, 2016, was also located. The suspect was arrested for possession of a stolen vehicle, possession of stolen property, possession of a controlled substance, and committing a crime while out on bail. On December 16, 2016, the Eastville traffic team conducted a DUI driver's license checkpoint on Hamner, north of Limonite, between 8 p.m. and 3 a.m. 3 drivers were arrested for driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs. 5 were arrested for outstanding warrants, and 20 were cited for driving while unlicensed or suspended. The Eastville traffic team has 2 other DUI checkpoints scheduled for the future. Any future DUI checkpoints will be published in a press release prior to the date of the checkpoint. I encourage any commissioners or city staff to come to one of the checkpoints to see how we operate the checkpoint. And that is all I have.
Thank you, sir.
I have a question regarding the November 28th, October 28, 2016, male with the narco and handgun. Was he an Eastville resident? Do you know, the parolee?
I do not know, but I could find out and let you know at the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes. Did you say in that time frame there was 101 mail thefts?
That is correct.
Are those individual mailboxes, or are those 101 cluster boxes?
I believe it's going to be a combination of all of them, individual houses or cluster. I do not have them broken down.
Okay, and could you tell us or get the information possibly, is that higher or lower when compared to other contract cities that the Sheriff's Department works with within the county?
I do not have that information at this time, but I could find out and let you know at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none. 4.2, monthly fire department update.
Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight I'll give you an update on the dates that I have are for the month of December of 2016. This month's not quite over, so I wanted to wait until the month was over, so I'll get that on the next meeting. So for the month of December 2016, the City of Eastvale ran a total of 280 calls. Of those calls, I can break them down for you. One was dispatches of commercial structure fire. We had 35 false alarms, 1 hazardous materials call, 198 medical emergencies, 10 public service assistance calls, 2 refuse fires, and 28 traffic collisions. If you look at the contrast between the same dates, December 2015, we ran a total of 236 incidents in the city. So that's an increase of 44 calls in 1 month. Times that by 12, we're looking at over 500 calls a year in increase, and we've seen that going every year. We increase in our calls for service. Obviously, we're building Station 31, which is going to take some of the load off of Station 27. We're doing some projection maps now that I'll probably have available to you next meeting. that's going to project what kind of calls we can expect the workload between 27 and Station 31 to have on each other and response times. For our average response times for December 2016, we're reaching our calls for service in average 4.6 minutes. So we're still under our 5-minute time frame, and like I keep saying, once we get Station 31 open, I expect those numbers to go down with splitting those. As of January 2nd, we did downstaff Medic Squad 27 out of Station 27, and we're covering the 2 fire engines out of Station 27. So for now, we're running engine 27 and engine 227 out of the One City Fire Station until we can get 31 done and open and operational. I got an update today, engine 31, everything is done on it except for the radios, for the communications equipment, which takes about 3 days. So I expect engine 31 to be done complete by the end of this week. However, we are going to continue to run engine 227 out of Station 27. We don't want to run engine 31 until it's running out of its new fire station, and it gets dispatched out of Station 31 out of its new firehouse. So that we're going to hold off on that until we can make that happen. So we do have 2 fire engines out of there. We don't have any significant weather-related incidents to provide any feedback on during our last weather storm, those 3 storms that came in, the city of Eastvale and its infrastructure. We don't have anything that was above normal running. Traffic collision numbers went up, but that's pretty normal for any city and anybody that's dealing with the weather. But as far as significant incidents, we don't have anything to report for you. And that's all I have, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Regarding garage fires,
Uh-huh.
I know that we've had a number of them in the past month or so. Is there any significance to as to why? Do we have any resolution as to charging stations that occur with lawn equipment or any devices that are being charged or overcharged causing those fires?
We've had a couple garage fires, you are correct. And one of them, talking to the homeowner and you know, investigating and where the damage was, and obviously the damage in the garage is so severe, it's hard to pinpoint exactly where it was without talking to the homeowner. One of them we did have where he had LiPo batteries plugged in for remote control vehicles, and he did tell us that he had them plugged in and unattended. Obviously, that's not something that we recommend being done, and I think if you look on their chargers, they don't recommend doing that either. So that's our suspect on that one. And we did, through the city, we put out a public service announcement on the city's website stating those kinds of things, so that way if we do have additional fires, hopefully prevent them. One of the other fires that we did have in the city was one where residents were burning wood in a fireplace that was designed to be a gas fireplace. Those fireplaces and those houses are not designed with those fireplaces to hold the heat that a wood fireplace puts out. So I've been to many fires where we burn houses down because they go out and they get a big piece of oak, or you know, they cut a tree down, they figure they can just burn it in their fireplace, and the house is just not designed to do that. Again, we work with the public information officer in the city, and we put another public safety announcement out just to warn people and let them know that hey, there are differences in fireplaces and homes, and things to look for cleaning them. And you'd be surprised, we go to a lot of fires now where it's a reported fire. We get in there and they started a fire for the first time and they just didn't open the flue to let the smoke go out of the house, so it fills their house with smoke, and they perceive the house is on fire. So again, that went out as a public service announcement on the city website and all of their social media to try to prevent that stuff.
Thank you for that info. I did not know that you shouldn't burn wood in a gas burning fireplace.
There seems to be a lot of people that don't. If it's designed for that, it's called a zero clearance fireplace. They're just very thin sheet metal chimneys that go up,
Yep.
and you put a big piece of oak or several pieces in there. Even Duraflames, they burn a lot hotter than that gas log is designed to do, and it can burn. It'll burn through that metal, or even if it doesn't burn through the metal, it'll heat that metal up, and then the wood behind it. And if you keep doing it, it'll eventually catch that wood behind it on fire, and then it'll run your whole chimney. And I've been on second story house, and the second story's on fire, and the first floor is not, because of that. So it's definitely something that we wanted to get the word out through the city and make people aware of that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Item 4.3, presentation of Hope Seaburn to the Public Safety Commission.
Good evening, Chairman DaCosta and Commissioners. I really just wanted to take a moment to formally introduce you to your newest Public Safety Commissioner, Hope Siebert.
Thank you.
She was appointed by Councilmember Brandon Plott. And I apologize that I don't have a bio to read for you, so I'm going to put you on the hot seat.
Oh, no.
If you could maybe share with the commission and the public a little bit about yourself, or if there's a few words that you'd like to say. We're really honored to have you join us and be a part of the Public Safety Commission. We look forward to working with you in 2017. And I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, well, I apologize. I don't really have anything ready, but we're just going to fly by the seat of our pants. Okay, so, been in Eastville since 2009. Love the community since we have moved here. I've always wanted to be involved, and I've been attending meetings and volunteering pretty much. I have a son in all his sports leagues. He does attend Rosa Parks, so I'm involved with the PTA and volunteering my time there as well. When this came up, I thought to myself, let me just do this. I mean, it's something that I'm excited about, and, of course, thankful that I'm here today, but just wanted to give something back, I guess. I wanted to give something back to the community that I do love, and I do have a passion for this, so that's where it led. So here I am today.
Very good. Well, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And for the benefit of the commission and the public, Mrs. Siebert was nominated as the Neighbor of the Year
That's right.
from the Eastville Crime Watch and Reporting. So she was chosen by all of the Eastville residents as the #1 neighbor. So welcome aboard, and again, we're honored to have you join us.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 5 for the consent calendar. Are we going to go through one by one and accept each of these, or shall we go through as a collection of? Is there any items that we need to point out or bring significant importance to?
Honorable Chairperson DaCosta, if the commissioners have any items that you have questions on, you can pull that item. The remaining items, if there are no questions, you can approve them all in one motion.
Very well. I'll move to receive and file all items under item 5.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Flores,
Aye.
Commissioner Khan,
Aye.
Commissioner Siebert,
Aye.
Vice Chair Corolla,
Aye.
Chair DeCosta.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Commission business items. Item 6.1, acceptance of the fiscal year 2016 Emergency Management Performance Grant Program, EMPG Award.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Aaliyah Rodriguez. I'm the Senior Administrative Analyst for the City Manager's Office. The item before you is a review and open forum. We'd ask any questions regarding the fiscal year 16 EMPG, referred to it as. It's basically a grant that the Riverside County Emergency Management Department applies for as an operational area, which means the whole county. They get allocated funds from the federal government to disperse amongst the cities and jurisdictions within Riverside County for emergency management related functions. This year, based on our population, that's how they gather based on population, we were allocated $14,290 to spend on emergency management related activities. Then the body of the staff report identifies that we can essentially spend this money on anything related to that, whether that's equipment, time, staff. I know it's not a very large amount, but I think it's our theory that every little bit counts to help keep the citizens of Eastvale prepared for any kind of catastrophic event or emergency. There are some parameters of what we can and can't use the money on. There's a guideline that I won't give you all the full details of it, but it's an authorized equipment list of what we can and can't. So there are some parameters set on there. In the past, the city has utilized this specific funding for outfit the Emergency Operations Center, which kind of co-locates between City Hall, which we're now transferring over to Fire Station 27. I've been working with Chief Scribner and his staff at 27 to make sure that we have the proper equipment there to function as an emergency operations center. As far as fiscal impacts, this is a fully reimbursable grant, but for this one specifically, there is a cash match or an in-kind match. So typically jurisdictions can either put up 50% of those dollars to match it, or we can utilize staff time. The match for this is my staff time. I allocate my staff time for emergency management related projects to offset the cost of the $14,000. So there is essentially no, it's all the way 100% reimbursable. Other than that, there are no fiscal impacts to the city, and I'm available for any questions you might have related to this specific grant.
Any questions at this time? Thank you. Anything further?
No, but the next item will be very, very similar. So I don't know if you're looking to take it.
Moving on to acceptance of the fiscal year 2016 State Homeland Security Program Grant Award.
So good evening again, Chairman and Commissioners. This grant is the Homeland Security Program grant. And we were allocated in the same fashion. Oh, I'm so sorry. I guess we have to take a
Should
vote
do
for
the
that
vote.
item. I apologize.
Very good.
An EMPG.
So back to the EMPG. Recommendation. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to move to place the EMPG award on the City Council's agenda for January 25th with our recommendation that they accept the award.
Second.
Commissioner Commissioner Flores,
Aye.
Commissioner Khan,
Aye.
Commissioner Siebert,
Aye.
Vice Chair Perola,
Aye.
Chair DeCosta.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Now moving on to the acceptance of the fiscal year 2016 State Homeland Security Program Grant Award.
Hello again, I do apologize for that. So this award is also allocated to us by the Riverside County Emergency Management Department, and it's very similar to the previous grant, EMPG. However, this grant, we were awarded $9,193. The difference between the two grants is this grant specifically has to be utilized for a CERT project, which is a community emergency response team project. The money that we are allocated for this is 100% again reimbursable. There is no match, cost match, or in-kind match for this grant. And typically the things that we use for in relation to CERT training are either course materials, courses itself, or contracting instructors to come out and actually teach the curriculum to community members. It is my understanding that historically in the city of Eastville, there are 2 classes held per year for conjointly between the Urban Community Services District and the city of Eastville for residents within the city of Eastville. I would imagine the vision would be to carry that same mission this year, unless there's a high demand or need for emergency or CERT training for the future years. Again, there's no fiscal impacts. It's 100% reimbursable grant, and I am available for any questions.
Any questions? A motion is in
I'll make a
order.
motion to place the item on the agenda for the city council meeting on January 25th with a recommendation to approve.
I'll second.
Commissioner Flores,
Aye.
Commissioner Khan,
Aye.
Commissioner Siebert,
Aye.
Vice Chair Perola,
Aye.
Chair DeCosta.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Draft truck route study update, item 6.3.
Good evening, Chair, Commission, Greg Bradshaw, City Engineer. What we have before us is the draft truck study update item. A little bit of background, this actually started almost a year ago when we prepared a request for proposals to hire an engineering firm to perform a truck route study. The need for the truck route study, since the city's been incorporated, there are no
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. My name is Fred Minico, Principal of Minico and Associates Inc. in Irvine. And for this project, we have a specific protocol. We've done similar projects for the city of Fulton that I introduced to the city council and has been approved. City of South Pasadena, Los Angeles County, and a bunch of other cities, including Chino Hills and so on. For this project, clearly understanding that City of Eastville is a new city when it comes down to implementation of this kind of program. Number one, we wanted to make sure that the data collection would be in compliance and conformance of the U.S. government, the federal statutes, as well as California Highway Patrol, which is the state of California / Caltrans and CVC code, California Vehicle Code, and then to coming down with respect to the county, and last but not least, with respect to the existing ordinances that the city of Eastville has had. Now, clearly understanding that the city of Eastville, or to be more specific, the city council never had approved any specific ordinance or resolution in that matter, we started from ground zero. We looked at 10 major signalized intersections within the city to make sure that we count the number of trucks, number of passenger cars, number of buses, number of pets, number of bikers, and in a nutshell, to have a clear understanding of the existing traffic fluctuation at all those 10 intersections, which happen to be the pivotal intersections in the city. The intersections are outlined and they are depicted in the report that you have, 100-page report, so I don't want to bore you with that. In a nutshell, during the months of August and September of 2016 last year, our field crew collected the data on typical weekdays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and the counts were collected during 2 hours of AM, 7 to 9, midday 11 to 1, and PM 4 to 6, and they are all color-coded in the, I guess, the big report that if you have a copy of. If you don't, I'm looking at the whole, this discussion is from a global perspective, that all those data that we collected at all those 10 locations were analyzed. We looked at the peak hours. We looked at 4 consecutive 15-minute intervals of every location with regard to the approaches and the intersections to see what are the specific routes that have the majority of the truck traffic traversing through those locations, i.e., arterials. And then we looked at the classifications of the roadways based on your general plan, which is based on your transportation and infrastructure element of your general plan, to make sure that, number one, we look at the freeway systems, which you only have 2, I-15 to the east and Route 60 to the northeast. And then we looked at all the major arterials. Major arterials are the ones in your city based on your general plan, that if a location has between 3 to 6 lanes, then it is construed as a major arterial. And then we looked at those routes that have the number of lanes up to 4. And then we looked at all the collectors, and then we went down, we looked at all those local roadways that happen to be the majority of your infrastructure in the city. Putting everything in perspective from a socioeconomic demographic perspective, that the city of Eastville happened to have the majority of the land uses have been allocated to residential with a small portion to other areas, but the warehousing, the industrial, the businesses happen to be north and northeast of the city. Now, we always look at everything from a global perspective and then we act local. Now, those areas the areas that you see, these areas, the commercial, industrial, warehousing happen to be basically in conjunction or adjoining those warehousing distribution centers in the city of Ontario. So we looked at the city of Ontario to the north, we looked at the city of Chino to the west, the city of Norfolk to the south, and Parupa Valley to the east. We looked at the distribution centers, we did origin destination surveys, OD, based on the data that we got from the Southern California Association of Government, SCAG. We looked at all the data that they have collected through all the years, and we looked at our own traffic distribution, meaning that how many trucks are coming via the gateways, or I call them the valves, into your system, to your grid system. And then based on the truck distribution, we identified all those major routes that happen to be widely used by the truckers. Now, I have to get off the subject and look at other cities with respect to these. When I take them to the city council meetings, it happened to be pretty much legal. Now, this is the legal clauses. When it comes down to truck routes, you as a city, i.e. as a municipal corporation in the state of California, up to a point, you can prohibit trucks from utilizing any specific route, because under the U.S. government statutes and codes and under the state of California's laws, you as a city, as a municipal corporation, cannot preclude, prohibit specific trucks from using your system. However, changing my hat, as I've been serving for 8 years as the city traffic engineer for the People's Republic of South Pasadena in Los Angeles County, and as you can imagine, I can say that here, the city of South Pasadena, the city council commissioned me to look into prohibiting trucks coming from the south. South meaning city of Alhambra. City of Alhambra, as you well know, is the one that connects basically 710 freeway. And city of South Pasadena is the only city in the U.S. since 1946, after President Eisenhower enacted the interstate system, has been suing and has been winning, and so far up to this date, they have stopped the U.S. government from continuing construction of 710 freeway. 710 freeway, as you know, stops in South Pasadena, and then, you know, city of South Pasadena as an island, and then city of Pasadena has 710. So they wanted to preclude trucks from using their city. They told me that we want you to prepare a report exactly like this report in a different fashion. And then my conclusion was that when I went to the city council, we had workshops, planning commission, public works commission, on and on and on. My position was the same, that this is going to be a legal process, and people of Alhambra and the Trucker Association of America, on and on and on, they are going to be potentially filing lawsuits against the city. And I made a recommendation to them not to pursue, not to proceed with that movement. Now, within the context of what's going on in other cities, I wanted to make sure that my presentation to you is not only technical, but also it's a mixture of legal and what's happening in other agencies, up to what point you as a commission, you can move forward, and then ultimately, then later planning commission, and then ultimately the city council would be ratifying these proposed truck routes in your city. So within the context of what you can do or cannot do, it is my job, my duties, my responsibilities to bring to you the state of the practice, the state of the art, the state of the technology when it comes, and the state of the legal aspects when it comes down to these truck routes and how you can designate them, how you cannot. Obviously, I understand, politically speaking, I'm Mayor Pro Tem of another city. I understand. I don't want to see trucks in my neighborhood. I understand that. As a resident, as a father, on and on, it is preferred, don't put it on my backyard. I don't want to see this route that happened to be in the vicinity of my home to be used as a truck route. Politically speaking, putting that within the context of what we are trying to do here, that kind of movement, to be perfectly honest with you, it doesn't work, because ultimately the drawback to the city, the potential negative ramification of that pursuit would be potential legal actions against the city. And by the way, 90% of the cities have lost when it comes down to prohibition of trucks, because Truck Association of America, they are very powerful, and they have the right, by the way, under the U.S. Constitution, the Commerce Act, they are entitled to use specific routes. So, to get back to the routes that we are proposing to you, within that context, I just wanted to make sure that I bring it to you from that perspective, that I'm not sitting here as an engineer by saying that, okay, we analyze them, the numbers say this, and then I make recommendations. No, I'm going far beyond that, so that you clearly get the best of everything for your well-structured, well-organized city. You're a new city. Obviously, in the past number of years, you have not had any truck routes. So at this juncture, which is the best time to designate specific routes as the truck routes, we want to make sure, number one, we are in sync with all the neighboring cities, meaning that if a truck would start from, let's say for the hypothetical case, from the city of Ontario to the north, they're coming down south, up to a point the city of Eastville can post signs, oh, trucks exceeding specific tonnage cannot enter. You cannot do that, then what's gonna happen to that trucker? The trucker, you're not gonna have your police department, your sheriff department to be patrolling all those routes 24/7. So having said that, clearly understanding the law enforcement aspect of it, then we are not making that kind of recommendation. Our recommendation is from a pragmatic perspective, to make sure that those routes that we are making the recommendation to you, obviously as a draft, because you're the body that you're gonna review it, you're gonna, you're gonna see how you agree with those proposed routes, and then it goes to the planning commission, and then ultimately to the city council for the ratification of the proposed action plan. So our routes are based on those thinking. Somebody starts from the city of Chino to the west on Pine Street. By the time he gets to the borderline, you cannot put a sign by saying that, okay, these truckers exceeding this weight cannot come in, meaning that we have to be receptive for those. So a lot of those routes, by the way, let's forget about the engineering aspect of it, that based on sheer numbers, those routes have 8 minimum 10% truck traffic, truck volumes. According to Federal Highway Administration, on any specific segment of a roadway, when you have more than 2%, then that means truckers are using it. 2% is the threshold that we use to say, oh, this is not a truck route. So having said that, what we are proposing for those specific routes, north, south, and east, west, they are basically in sync with your neighboring cities. Now, let me move one step further. The essence of our proposal to you would be this. We looked at the cities of Chino, city of Norco to the south, city of Ontario to the north, and city of Rupa Valley to the east. All of them, with the exception of Norco, have established 5 tons as the limit for their truck routes, meaning that they have posted signs that would prohibit truckers, when they exceed the 5 tons, from entering their cities. And quite frankly, I was pretty surprised myself, having looked at 85 cities in California, that why the city of Ontario, with all these distribution centers, has a limit of 5. I was expecting it to be higher. Lessons learned. If a big city, industrial, with a lot of distribution centers, have 5 tons, that means you as a city, you should be fine. 5 tons is very reasonable. City of Chino has 5 tons limit. City of Rupa Valley, 5 tons. City of Norco to the south is a bit higher. Once you take the average of all these, then the common number becomes 5 tons as the limit for those routes that we are designating, we are proposing to be designated ultimately by the city council as a truck route. And then they would constitute your citywide truck route master plan. So that's the second. The third, obviously, we looked at all your residential areas in the city, and none of the routes that we are proposing for your consideration and approval happen to be within immediate, how can I put it, like a residential areas. So we were cognizant of that. So politically speaking, you're not going to have residents to protesting that, oh, well, why, your consultant is proposing for this route to happen to be, in front of my driveway when I have small kids playing. So we have excluded all those routes. So once you look at the proposed plan that you see, which is, they're all shown on this map. Well, this is Pine. So from the city of Chino, truckers can come this way, and ultimately they can proceed to the east. Yes, Pine changes. Yes, the name changes. And then river here is is another route that we're proposing to be used, to be designated as a truck route. And then you have north-south arterials, such as Archibald, that we are proposing to be used as a truck route. And obviously, you've got two other routes here. One of them, I believe, is yes, Hamner, yes, is this one, this route, and then ultimately the other route, which is near I-15 freeway. So the routes are pretty much, they have passed all the internal testings by us, meaning that they establish uniformity. They are outside of specific residential hot zones. They do serve all the distribution centers, your business centers, the centers of all the big activities. And at the same juncture, truckers would not be confused, because truckers have GPS system, as you well know. Anybody nowadays with the GPS system would get automatically the shortest route. So you designate a route, for example, not to be a truck route, they're gonna be using it anyhow. So by having said that, putting that into consideration, how the truckers would be utilizing your infrastructure, the routes that we are suggesting would fall into those common routes, the most reasonable routes. So with that, and then we've done all the research with regard to the sizes by Caltrans, California Vehicle Code, everything else. The bottom line is not to bore you with different axles, with different, age classifications, the tonnage for each of them. 5 tons would be the one that is pretty much common in California. We've got 482 cities in California, and an overwhelming majority of them would be using the 5 tons as the threshold. So with that, I would be more than happy to answer any technical questions that you may have, how we, derive with all the numbers and what have you.
I have a couple questions. Thank you, Mr. Miniger. 2 things. I read in your recommendation to reduce the weight limit from 14,000 pounds to 10,000 pounds. So the 14,000 pound, is that County of Riverside, or where did that number come from?
Very excellent question. 14,000 pounds, which translates into 7 tons. It came originally from the County of Riverside.
Okay.
Even though they did not have specific designations of any specific route for that. But that's what I believe when you must have used that initially when your city became incorporated a number of years ago. By default, you had to use a number, and that's why that 7 tons or 14,000 pounds have been used. What we are recommending ultimately to go to the City Council for ratification, as, by the way, I get to the technicality aspects of it before I forget. I want to make sure that this item, when it goes from you to the Planning Commission, ultimately to the City Council, will go through 2 readings. It's a legal issue, it's a legal requirement, because you don't want to be getting letters from Washington, D.C., from all kinds of different organizations that you did not go through the due diligence. What you're doing is perfect. We're starting from you, Public Safety Commission, and then Planning, and then City Council. So you must have 2 readings, then it would become ordinance, not a resolution. It has to be done as an ordinance, and then so you invite people, you invite communities and stakeholders and what have you. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that you are going to have, I don't want to get into the next item, ad hoc committee, that you're going to establish a temporary committee, which is good, but I have legal suggestions on that, if I may, not to jump to the next item, because I go to a lot of these all over California and other states, and I want to make sure that your city does it the right way. And your city happened to be a master plan community. I'm pretty sure that you're going to be following the same protocol. But in that, procedure or protocol, you want to make sure that you don't drop any of these checks and balances so that it goes seamlessly. Like I did it for the city of Fulton. We went to the city council. It was a slam dunk. It was approved, the master plan. Under the second reading, South Pasadena and other places, Chino Hills and a bunch of other places. So to go back to your question now, yes, it was from the county, and 5 tons is more reasonable because when you look at the neighboring cities, why should you keep a number or a threshold that, quite frankly, from a public safety perspective, I don't advocate for it. When City of Ontario is using 5 tons, why not you? So that when it goes to the city council, that number, that threshold, that ordinance is going to be obviously, I guess, repealed. And then this one is going to be constituted as the new law of the land with regard to the master plan of truck routes in New York City.
Thank you. That leads me to my next question.
Yes, sir.
If the recommendation is 5 tons then, we are adjacent to Norco. Really, the only thoroughfare for truckers that come down is Hamner.
That is
It's my understanding that the truck limit for Norco is 5.5 tons.
correct.
So would that be problematic in enforcement because we're adjacent to Norco?
It's a very good question. It's a kind of gray area, but because the difference, the delta, is not much, the city should be okay. I mean, you can ask our colleagues in the sheriff department. When I talk to, police officers, it's very hard to quantify. Okay, this truck is exactly, by looking at them, 5 tons or 5.5. So because the number is pretty close, you should not have any problem, number one. And number two, Norco is the only one. All other cities, if there is an issue, they should have the same, the same potential problem like you do. But it hasn't been the case because I have not heard from any other agencies to be, in that kind of, when the increment is pretty high, like 10 or 20 ton, the difference is big, then yes, you're gonna have often kinds of questions that truckers, if someone would be getting a citation, they can protest it. Oh, well, why did you stop me? Why? But for your case, I don't think you would have that, because the good news is all the surrounding cities, almost, 75% happen to be at 5 tons and only one 5.5. And again, I started with my statement that we took the average of all the cities surrounding. So you're okay when you take the average, then the number 5 tons would stand.
Okay, so are there caveats? So for example, you have an incident on the I-15 where it's shut down and they detour. Can you explain that?
Well, the issue of detours, it's pretty, nowadays in Southern California, because of the traffic congestion that we've had because of population growth, and obviously vehicle, increases on major infrastructures, it's inevitable. If you have a spillover, it's going to be over the most direct or adjacent arterial, and by default, it happens to be the arterial that you mentioned. So you as a city, you cannot preclude them from entering your arterial because there is a traffic collision on the freeway. So no, there's nothing that you can do. It's a kind of semi-emergency type of situation that I'm pretty sure that your sheriff department would be cognizant of that fact, that the truckers have no choices, but if it is on the changeable message sign, or if there is a sign, or a CHP officer would be directing traffic to get off the freeway, quite frankly, your infrastructure has to accept what comes into the system. So those are exceptional cases. So you should be fine. Legally, you're fine, and technically, you cannot take it for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have a couple questions. Just quickly, my background, I spent 18 years for a large city, still employed by that city, but 18 years as the commercial enforcement officer, and worked closely with our council and the National Trucking Association on rerouting of trucks. And numerous court cases have spent trying to either defend truck routes or work on behalf of the Trucking Association in order to bridge the gap of need for delivery versus public safety. On that, a couple of things I have a question of. When we did these, or when you did these truck routing studies, were you, on your vehicle counts, how were we defining trucks? Were we defining commercial vehicles by weight or by size?
Well, typically, as you know, based on Federal Highway Administration, if you take that system, it goes by the number of axles. But for when we do the surveys for the cities, including your city, Eastvale, anytime our field observer would see a vehicle that would be larger than a typical UPS truck, UPS delivery truck is called a truck. So we did not classify your trucks based on the axles or based on their weights. Anything bigger than a UPS truck was clicked or it was computerized. It was shown as one truck, bigger than a UPS truck.
Okay, so that leads me into, this is what we ran into in my city, where we ultimately ended up reducing from 5 tons down to a 6,000-pound residential weight because of the UPS, and not specific to that company, but because of the trucks of the size of a UPS that were 12,000 pounds, anywhere between 8 and 12,000 pounds, moving on smaller streets, which we have major arterials here. Would there be a way to prohibit, based on weight of trucks entering and using residential areas for staging based on these studies? Or would those commercial vehicles defined as such exclude them?
Would you elaborate more on a potential truck to be using your residential area?
We had an issue in the city where I'm from where we had enforcement personnel, because it was a poorly written law, giving citations to F-350s. Because it is a commercial vehicle defined in the vehicle code, and it was 7,000 pounds, and we had residents complaining that there's no longer a pickup truck. They're using it as a, like a handyman or a construction truck, and we'd have companies moving in and parking 6 or 7 UPS-style trucks in a neighborhood, and we had to capture those as commercial vehicles that weren't captured when we did the truck route study because we were only looking at trucks that were UPS size or larger. So all of our contractors' trucks, we were having issues. And would that something that you would see as a potential problem going forward? In other words, there was an issue in Eastvale here that I recall that people were using the Home Depot parking lot to store their trucks, their pool trucks and things of that such. But they are defined as commercial vehicles by weight. And they may be between the 6,000, they may bounce out of the pickup truck category into a commercial vehicle category. And while I'm not promoting issuing citations for a UPS-style truck going up Hamner, would this be able to capture those style trucks parking in residential areas?
Well, I mean, I've served in the planning commission of my home city for almost 10 years as the chairman, and I'm very familiar with the subject that you're bringing up. Well, there are 2 separate issues there. The first one is with regard to your parking ordinance in your city. So if your code enforcement department has specific written laws, then they can give them tickets for having those vehicles parked there. Now, let me go back to the number. 10,000 pounds would translate into 5 tons, and you mentioned 7,000 pounds. So then it should be, if I may, so it should be okay as long as they are on the designated routes. But if they happen to be living in a residential area, parking their vehicles, quite frankly, your code enforcement department can go give them tickets, and if they repeat that, they can get towed. In my home city, that's what we do. In a lot of other cities, that's what they do. But we have to establish a history of the specific, license plate to be parked there. So there are 2 things. If that driver that has 10,000 pounds total gross, vehicle weight would be parking there, number 1, he's in violation of being there because the sign indicates that the threshold is, if it's more than 10,000 pounds, by the way, that, okay, it's illegal, and number 2, he cannot park it there, so he can get 2 separate tickets on that. So did I clarify it, or?
Yes, I don't want to get into an issue where we have a contractor's truck parking on a street where technically they're in violation of the truck route ordinance by weight. Or I don't want to get into an issue where we have a 9,000-pound truck where, because I have gone back and forth with some citizens and trucking groups time and time again, where they were looking at unladen weight versus gross vehicle weight, and we had to call someone with scales and didn't have scales. And looking at the truck, it was to use your term, a UPS-style truck that was used to, as a painting service, and a resident would have 3 or 4 on the street, where they're obviously the intent of the law is to prohibit the size and type of vehicle on the street, but because it was in the city where I come so poorly worded that we were allowing trucks the size of above pickup truck, below semis or 3-axle tractors to be in the neighborhoods. So my fear is that when we look at this, are we capturing those types of trucks that when you say truck or when I say truck, many people think of a big rig going down the 15 freeway. However, in my experience and your experience, a lot of the complaints from citizens are going to be because it's a lumber truck parked in front of their house or a stake bed truck parked driving up and down the street.
Well, Mr. Commissioner, your points are well taken. Actually, you're hitting the target. What I'm proposing, I'm suggesting that as a public record, your comments to be taken into specific consideration when the final ordinance is being drafted by the city attorney. Those specific clauses to be incorporated into the final version when it goes to the city council for ratification, number one. Number two, I presume your city, Eastville, as a master plan community, you do have HOAs, I take it, right?
Some neighborhoods do.
So the other thing, in my home city, we have like 57 HOAs that they manage these, and this is the sole responsibility of HOAs to give them citation and what have you. If they don't respond, if they don't, or they keep violating, that then it comes up to us in the city council, and then we send the code enforcers to those specific areas. That's what I suggest. So, but if I heard that, like, let's say 30% of the city has HOAs, so another avenue would be, HOAs would be another group of stakeholders that I want to make sure that they would be a part of your ad hoc committee, so that you keep them, you bring them on board, so the issues that you raise, which are excellent points, and inevitably they're going to show up, you know, after the implementation of the citywide, you know, truck route master plan, that as much as we could, we would eliminate them, and then at the same juncture, we have to put some teeth in the ordinance that the city attorney is going to be drafting. So then we're going to need your contract city, I presume, right? Yes. With your sheriff department, with their inputs, because then enforcement should be included there, so those cases, those episodes that you mentioned would not be coming up in those specific areas. But then definitely HOAs and obviously Chamber of Commerce ought to be also involved in that ad hoc committee that I wanted to, you know, elaborate later on the composition of the membership of ad hoc, because it does play a major role, because down the pike, this is going through due process, public hearing and what have you, and that's why I'm here, that's why we're discussing it, you know, in an open forum for everyone to understand, for everyone to agree upon, but obviously we cannot achieve the 100% on that. Then the second part of your question was, again, that issue of threshold, I think in your city, based on your personal experience, I want to make sure that we make more clarification on 10,000 pounds, which is 5 tons threshold for the city. That clearly for each area, maybe we come up with a map, you know, cloud map that shows, okay, in this area, anything more than this is prohibited by law because of the ordinance. And then what happens if someone would be violating that? Because then people are gonna show up at the city council meetings or your commission meetings by saying that, well, you know, I have that kind of experience and I don't wanna see these, you know, trucks to be parked on my street, you know, next to my home.
And one other question, in the development of this map here, would all of these routes meet the requirement for the designation as a national network for the Eisenhower?
Oh, no. Let me go back to the President Eisenhower's Act of 1948. It's called Interstate Act. The Interstate Act is basically would apply to Interstate 15, I-15, and California State Route 60. So anything beyond that would not fall into those categories.
So my question is, and I know there's a loophole versus the federal law and the CVC on length regulations, would trucks be restricted to 65 feet on here? Because I know Chino has designated some national networks based on engineering and traffic surveys on the turning radius of the truck on the infrastructure in their city. And I know that there is a mechanism in effect for trucking companies and residents, for that matter, to petition a city in writing for the designation of a terminal access route for an extension of delivery service to and from terminals off the Eisenhower network. Would this capture it, or would this exclude 70 sleeper trucks with 53-foot trailers, the over 65-foot California law?
Quite frankly, it would exclude them, because when we looked at the composition of the data that we collected from the field, when we look at origin and destination survey results from our own field data and also the Southern California Association of Governments truck data, as you know, Route 60 is one of the national. It's a designated, you know, heavy truck route because of ports of Los Angeles and Port of Long Beach, that you have a lot of big trucks using it. So no, it is not. But I think I'm glad you're bringing up. I've been at so many different meetings in my 32 years of professional experience that you're bringing up excellent points that it was never brought up in a public forum, and actually you're hitting all those, you know, those exceptional, one-of-a-kind types of situations that it may come up potentially.
Well, I know that I defended the city where I come from, where I work, on that because we go by the California Vehicle Code. And we've had trucking company after trucking company petition us to allow terminal access routes under 35401 of the Vehicle Code to allow the longer trucks to come off the freeway. And I know from personal experience that Chino has allowed that, and a city cannot exclude those trucks except by traffic survey, by the MUTCD design standards. I don't want to get into I don't want to put enforcement into a situation where they're forced to go to the federal standards if we don't capture that and either allow it or deny it at the design phase.
Well, let me make one amplification and one correction, if I may. Engineering and traffic surveys are typically done for one purpose, and that is for the establishment of posted speed limits. And we do tons of them all over. And typically in those surveys, it's not typically, it's a part of the federal MUTCD requirement. We don't look at composition of trucks or the length of any truck that would be using it. We look at 85th percentile, which is 85% of 100 vehicles being surveyed. What would be their, you know, their prevailing speed, and then based on that, we come up with a posted speed limit for each segment, and then we send it to the court that has jurisdiction over that specific area for your law enforcement, groups to enforce it and issue citations. So that it's not a part of that. And what you're saying, I think, for the city of Chino must be a very exceptional case. And honestly, I'm not aware of that from the city of Chino. I would be more than happy if I can get more information on that. Then when we go to the next round, which would be a presentation to the Planning Commission and other stakeholders and ultimately to the City Council, that we resolve that before we get to the City Council for the ratification of the proposed truck routes. And I want to make sure again to rectify, remedy any potential, gaps that we may have with the City of Chino, if the City of Chino has been using it. But when I look at the map, only 2 routes, I think Pine Avenue to the west and is it Hellman?
Yeah.
Hellman Avenue would be the only ones that happen to be adjoining your city. So in conclusion, without looking at any data, if none of those routes happen to be within those classifications, by the way, I took Pine Avenue to get here from Orange County, and Pine Avenue, understanding the geometry of it, I don't think Pine Avenue would fall into any other federal classification. So from my engineering judgment perspective, I don't think that these routes that happen to be adjoining your city would be falling into those categories that the City of Chino has established. So we may be fortunate that we don't have to deal with that, but we want to make sure that our proposed citywide truck route would be a bulletproof document, and there would be no loopholes, and we can verify that with the City of Chino when we are going to be contacting them with regard to your proposed, citywide truck routes. And then we can also raise that issue that, by the way, any of these routes would be in potential conflict with those, and then we can make corrections and we can bring it back to you, and then, other committees and City Council. Yes, sir.
If I may, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, actually, if you look at the map that we have on the screen there, this map is actually considering all other cities around our areas, to the north, to the east, to the west, to the south. And like Mr. Minigar has explained earlier, we try to coordinate with those people because we don't want to have trucks coming from their cities to our city, suddenly we stop, and they have nowhere to go. And if you look at the core of the city, between Limonite and Archibald and Hamner, we try to limit that no truck routes in that area. So trucks coming from the west going through Sliceman is got to be detoured through Archibald going up and down. Okay, and then it's going, Hamner is north of the Limonite, north of Belgrave is industrial area. So we have to let that happen. We look at the small segments on Riverside Drive and also Canto Galliano that actually has connectors to the west. Riverside Drive is truck route in Ontario, and maybe there's something to be added there later on, Fred. And also Canto Galliano, if you go to the west, there's New Model Colony. There is a major street that connects to Edison. I don't know if Ontario is going to use that as a truck route or not. It's a bit too early because New Model Colony is a new residential area. But we try to protect our core area with residential in the area that I mentioned earlier. So with this in mind, we are trying to work with these agencies, and this is a preliminary draft information that is before you. We're trying to finesse this a little bit more, trying to saturate more after we meet with the stakeholders and also with other cities. And in addition to that, I understand that we are also working on commercial truck parking within residential areas. That is also in our book to work with together, and it's going to be in tandem with these truck routes, because this without that or that without this is going to be a little unbalanced. So we are working on that as well. Our Lieutenant Scott Forbes and myself and our engineering team is working on that to see what we can do on the timing on the commercial truck parking in residential area along with the truck route here.
Sean, anything further?
I was going to add, I'm glad you took the mic, Joe. I was going to ask regarding overnight parking as well, because I noticed the draft route study that he went over. He mentioned it also that they didn't really cover anything regarding parking situations and concerns. But I think one of the concerns also that was brought up here tonight is also the vehicles that are parking in Home Depot parking lot and other areas where it is commercial. And I mean, we're not here to enforce private property, but just being certain that those vehicles are not abandoned, I think that should be brought into consideration also.
Yeah, it is a challenge for us and all these trucks parking at Home Depot. We try to address that by contacting the property managers, but we have no jurisdiction. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sergeant Davis. We have no jurisdiction of truck parking within the privately owned commercial areas.
Yeah.
But we understand it's a challenge for us. You want to add, Bill?
That's correct, unless there's a city ordinance. Moreno Valley has a city ordinance that says there's no commercial parking except for in designated areas. So unless the city has a certain ordinance.
So the motion is in order now to receive an update. The draft truck route study.
Make a motion to receive and update the
I don't think we need a motion.
truck draft study.
I'll second.
You see any further discrepancies you wanted to go over? I think you hit a lot of things.
Yeah, we're good.
Thank you, sir.
No motion is required for that item.
Very good. Moving on to the consideration of an ad hoc committee, as we heard here tonight, regarding the discussion of the draft truck route studies. Craig?
Chair, Commissioners, yeah, I think you just described it. We'd like to form an ad hoc committee to address the current truck route study. And we'd like to elect 2 members of the Public Safety Commission. And we'd also like to determine the maximum number of East Bell residents to serve as members of this ad hoc committee. We're looking at from a 2 to 4 month timeline. There will be a certain amount of education. We want people to be involved and really understand the truck route, issue, and what's required. And then we'll, at that point, after we've met with all the shareholders, Mr. Midgard has also met with the trucking industry in every city. We'll bring that back to the Public Safety Commission and the Planning Commission, and ultimately go to the City Council. And we're hoping sometime this next spring.
Craig, if I could ask a question for my fellows who are staying on here. Would the 2 public safety commissioners that are proposed, would that be, would there also have to be an alternate?
We recommended an alternate just in case
Okay.
the 2 could not be. But we can only have 2 meetings at a time to move around.
Right, okay.
I also have a question. In the report that I have, it says, the ad hoc committee will convene at City Hall during normal business hours. Can you elaborate on that?
We'll work with you. We'll determine that at every meeting.
Sounds like I have some expressed interest here.
Yeah, I'm interested, but I don't want to commit if we're not sure on the time. If we can,
Well, we are going to have an alternate also.
Good evening, Commissioners. The time, we can be flexible on that, work around your schedules.
I'm sure you want to be a part of it, sir. And I would be considering the alternate position outside of you two.
Yeah, I would be interested in serving on that committee.
I'd be happy to.
We have our 2 and an alternate, I should say.
Did you want to make a
Any
motion
input?
on
Did
that?
you- I didn't want to exclude you.
No.
He's leaving us.
be on until tomorrow.
Okay.
We also want to share some things to the public, perhaps we would be as a group, the ad hoc committee, make some determination on who else we should involve.
Does the city keep a list of the HOAs, associations as they exist with current members and membership?
We are not given a list of members for homeowners associations. We are given a list of the managing companies. So we have had the city attorney's office obtain a copy of the CCNRs from each of the HOAs, and we do have a master list. But again, it is just the managing companies. It's not
Right.
the members of the board.
Understood. And is it for the city council then to determine that number maximum regarding those residents that would be in attendance?
We're asking for the commission to make a recommendation, keeping in mind that you're talking about including some HOA representatives, potentially the Chamber of Commerce, as was suggested, various stakeholders throughout the community. That could be, you know, some of our developers, light industrial and commercial developers. So you want to keep in mind that you want a committee that is manageable instead of like 100 people on the committee, because that just would not be manageable. And then you run into issues of actually canceling the meeting because you have too many people that can't attend. So I recommend trying to pick a number that that you're comfortable with, just for residents, and then of course you're going to add in the stakeholders and from there.
And the stakeholders, those are separate and apart from the two, right? That we're.
Yes, sir.
Or not the two, I'm making a recommendation for two. Oh, then the members from the residents.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that said, could I propose two? It'll keep the number manageable in terms of overall group.
So 2 residents.
And in addition to stakeholders?
In addition to stakeholders.
I would be okay with that.
What do we need to do?
Should we make a vote on that then?
Yes, sir.
So
Then I will move that the maximum number of Eastvale residents to serve on the ad hoc committee be 2 in number.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Flores,
Aye.
Commissioner Khan,
Aye.
Commissioner Siebert,
Aye.
Vice Chair Corolla,
Aye.
Chair DeCosta.
aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Items.
Chairperson DeCosta, can we also get a motion on who will be the representatives from the commission on the ad hoc,
Yes.
as well as your alternate?
Motion for, motion is in order for persons to represent for the ad hoc.
Make a motion for myself, Commissioner Flores as the representatives from the Public Safety Commission, with Commissioner DeCosta as the alternate.
I'll second.
Commissioner Flores,
Aye.
Commissioner Khan,
Aye.
Commissioner Siebert,
Aye.
Vice Chair Corolla,
Aye.
Chair DeCosta.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Moving on to item 7, public comment. Seeing none. City staff report.
Good evening, Honorable Chair and members of the commission. Just briefly want to wish you a Happy New Year. I know it's been a while since we've met. We do have a lot of projects coming before the council and commission this year, so it's going to be a busy year. I also want to kind of put on your radar that we do have the city's annual State of the City address, which is coming up on April 4th. So I believe you received a save the date notice. And that date can also be found on the Eastvale Connection as well as the city's website. Thank you.
Good evening again, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Just want to report that yesterday, our staff has attended the meeting with Commissioner Siebert, with the school district, and also with Principal Verduzco and Sergeant Bill Davis here. The topic of the discussion, the meeting was in this office right here, Rosa Parks. Topic of discussion was to discuss about traffic concerns around the school. And the meeting went really well, and we believe we have solved all the 3 items that are being raised by the parent of the student here, Rosa Parks. And one of the issues is enforcement. People making illegal left turn during certain hours. If you go out on Whispering Hills, there is a certain hours you cannot make a left turn because of traffic impedance. So some people just continue to make left turns. So it's an enforcement issue. The second one is red curb going. So also on the east side, on the west side of the driveway, there's red curb, but there is no stopping sign. So people still park and wait for their children over there. So we're going to add some signs in there. And the third item is people making a left turn on Whispering Hills onto Augie Ramirez bus turnout. There's no more bus in there, but there's a bus turnout. So people making a left turn, even though there is a sign on A-frame says no left turns. In that case, because we cannot enforce, it's not in public right-of-way. In that case, Mr. Steve Ellis, the school district, has volunteered to engage Augie Ramirez's principal and also Rosa Parks' principal, including city staff and then sheriff department, to meet up to see if we can get coordination from those principals to work together and doing some kind of education and encouragement to the parents so not to do that kind of thing. So those are the items that we discussed, and Commissioner Siebert was really a good meeting yesterday, I believe, and if you want to add, just feel free.
That was it. I'm glad you addressed it. We do have a future meeting coming up with Augie Ramirez. It was, like he said, it was a great meeting. We did identify the issues, and it's a good step. It's in the right direction. So I feel the parents here at Rosa Parks will definitely be happy and accept the changes.
Joe, since we're talking about schools, what's the status of the rebidding on the radar signs?
Oh, I'm sorry to. We have successfully rebid the radar signs, and we get, I believe, Siemens Company is a low bid, and it was back in November, right, Craig? December maybe. No, December 14, at City Council meeting was awarded, and we are now working with them to get the all the paperwork and documentations, bonds, and we have about 12 radar signs throughout the schools. We're gonna include, and we're looking forward to see that because this is also part of the grant that we received.
So what's the time frame that we're looking at before they're all?
I'm going to let Mr. Bradshaw here to answer that question.
Yes, there are 50 working days, and so we're looking at giving them notice to proceed probably at the end of this week. So that's about 2.5 months. Before it's due.
Any further communication from the city staff at this time? Thank you. Commission communications. Why don't you lead us, since you're leading us?
All right. So obviously this is my last commission meeting, and I just wanted to thank everybody who was everybody sitting on this in this panel, everybody who's on staff for just this tremendous experience, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to the city. all of our members of law enforcement and CAL FIRE who keep us safe, and everything you guys do is so above and beyond. We really appreciate it. I'm going to miss this. I'm going to have to figure out what to do on the 4th Tuesday of the month. But I'll be with you in spirit, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the city progresses. I'll be rooting for you every step of the way. Too many people to thank, but let me just take a minute to thank Michelle. I don't know if you remember this, but many years, it's been a couple years now, I was walking out that door. It was after the appointment for the Kelly, for Kelly's, what do you call it, when they were appointing a city council member after Kelly's vacancy. And Michelle essentially told me to stay involved. And that was a big part of motivating me to continue. And so I appreciate that. And I've lived in many cities, but I've only loved one, and this is it. So, thank you.
Well said. Thank you. Hope, why don't you lead us next? This is just a time to speak about what's on your heart as a commission member, and what would you like to see possibly on the next future agenda item, or anything that you would like to bring to the table when we meet again next month.
Oh, wow, okay. Again, thank you all. I really need to think about this. Another item for the agenda. Sean, you go ahead. Come back to me.
I'm good. I have nothing for communications this month.
Sir.
Anwar, it's been a pleasure. Best of luck to you. It's so funny, we both work downtown LA, almost across the street from each other, but our schedules are so hectic, we never even have lunch.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. Hope, welcome.
Thank you.
I think we have a great commission. We have a great staff. To the fire department, thank you very much. Thanks for the updates on the news station. People ask us all the time. The sheriff's department, you guys are doing a fantastic job. You have your hands full. It's amazing. Mail thefts are such a big deal, and everything seems to be a big deal these days because so much is happening. So I just want to extend my support and thanks for the work you and your officers do. And the city staff, thank you for these reports and everything. We want to volunteer. They always say, 10% of the people do 90% of the work. We love to volunteer. So just thank you for working with us. Even at the ad hoc meeting, I know what's written, but you're always willing to work with us. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Welcome, Hope.
Thank you.
As a part of being on the school committee, one of the items that was discussed in previous years is you kind of don't overburden yourself with being just the one liaison. We're all here to help.
Okay.
So assigning us one or two schools to be able to help out would not be out of question, I don't think, for any of my members on this panel. So don't feel alone.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the support.
The next item, Onward, we're gonna miss you. I think we've served well here together, and it's been a pleasure to serve with you. I have some items of safety concern for my law enforcement friends. I live on the south end of the city, somewhat near, as we saw, the truck route, River Road and Archibald, where they meet. And of course, Rahagis happens to be in my backyard. We've had a recent shooting. We've had fire structure damage, quite extensive. I want to commend the fire department for the stealth mode of your vehicles and the siren use. I didn't know that you could do that. There's a mode where the siren is still running, but it's at a very minimal decibel, so it doesn't impact the residents. It did wake me up because of the red lights, but that's aside from that. That being said, I'm just curious to know if next month we could look at addressing any rising or arisen safety concerns after the structure fire and the shooting that residents may be put at ease, because I think it's raised a red flag in my being as close as I am to that approximation. I just want to reassure the residents that not everything is being looked at, addressed, investigated, and so forth. So if you guys might both be able to address something with regard to those items that I mentioned specifically tonight, it would be great at the next meeting. Thank you. And then Jake brake enforcement. 4:30 in the morning, Viramontes has a tendency to come right down River Road and stop at Archibald and happens to use their Jake brake from time to time. Is there a CVC or some sort of an ordinance? I know probably not within our city just yet, but I'm curious to know if we might be able to seek out enforcement at said time.
I don't know any regulations at this point, but we do have a commercial officer in the city of Hooper Valley, and I'll definitely speak to him about this and see if there's any ordinances that would apply in the city.
And it's at about 4:30 in the morning, eastbound River Road, as it approaches the Archibald signal.
Commissioner DaCosta, did you say that's Miramontes? Is the
Viramontes,
Viramontes?
I think they're a recycling firm back there.
Yes. Okay.
On Hellman. And
They're
Chino
actually,
side.
yeah, they're in the Chino side.
Yeah. I believe they come southbound and from Hellman on to River,
And this is 4:30 in the morning
4:30
daily?
a.m.
Daily? Or,
I want to say it's a particular driver, so I can't say it's daily,
okay,
but I do know it wakes me up.
okay. Viramontes is a subcontractor to Waste Management for disposal of green waste.
Yes,
So we can also have that conversation through the back door.
very good.
So I'll talk to Waste Management.
Thank you. Outside of that, I have nothing further. If there's nothing further by the commissioners.
If I may just wish Commissioner Conwell, it has been a pleasure working with you, sir. You've brought tremendous value to the commission, and I will miss working with you.
Thank you. But I'll see you tomorrow.
Yes, I'll see you tomorrow.
This time, 7:40 PM, the motion to adjourn. It's in my hand.